All right, the first step of what we're going to do here is we're going to close the machine down to 30 thousandths, just using the powered control of the machine. Slight bumps get you that fine adjustment that you need. Once you have the machine set to 30 thousandths, at this point do not touch the position of that display again. It's going to stay in that position for the entirety of what we're doing. Now that you have the machine set to 30 thousandths, what you're going to do is visit each of the 4 heads. You're going to use the locking handle to unlock the adjustment. You're then going to use the adjustment knob itself. Again, the process is the same on all 4 of the heads. You're going to turn this to the left to lower the motor and disc, and you're going to spin it. What you want to achieve is you want the disc to make light contact with the feed belt. Not heavy, you're not trying to grind away the feed, but you want to know that you have solid and complete contact. That pretty much is where you want to be with all 4 of your heads. Once you have that light contact, lock the adjustment in place and continue the process for all of the heads, front and rear, in the machine. Just as you did with the front heads, you're going to do the same in the rear. You're going to unlock the adjustment. You're going to use the adjustment handle to the left to lower the brush. Keeping in mind that a brush is directional. They only spin in one direction. So when you're doing your testing here, make sure you spin in the proper direction. Again, I'm just going to lower to the left. I'm turning the knob with my left hand, and I'm spinning the brush with my right. And I'm just slowly lowering the brush until it makes reasonable contact with the conveyor belt. Again, I'm not trying to grind away the belt. I don't need that kind of pressure. I don't want it jammed tightly against the belt. I want complete contact with the conveyor belt. Once I have that, I'm going to lock my adjustment handle in place and continue to do the same thing with this motor as well. A few things to note about setting up the machine is that it's a variable. When you're dealing with the front or the rear stations in this machine, a good example is these flat brushes. Now again, this is a smaller 6-inch version just for the sake of display here, but you can see how as the brush rotates, it's actually rolling over the edge of the part. If we apply less pressure, it does less rounding. But if we apply too much pressure, then what we see is the brush actually deforms and can cause excessive wear. The fine balance between that is coming in just enough to where the Scotch-Brite and the abrasive rolls over that edge to give you radiusing on the part. There is a point where you can go too far and it basically just crushes the brush, and you're not really getting any benefit from the added pressure other than it's wearing the abrasives faster in the machine in general. So if you find that your edges are not round enough, the odds are what you need is to increase your setup a little bit. Where in our example here we've used 30 thousandths, it might be that 35 thousandths or 40 thousandths gives you more penetration to get the edge rounding that you're looking for, to give you more consistency across your parts. What you do not want to do is you don't want to bury the brushes unnecessarily. More pressure isn't always the answer. Sometimes slowing down the conveyor belt or increasing the rotation speed of the brush itself can play a major part in getting you the radiusing you need. Along the lines of the calibration is a lot of cases you have people that are looking for more rounding. On the right you have the standard red brush that ships with all the machines and is what is offered as a standard replacement. On the left is what's referred to as the gold brush. You can see the gold brush, the Scotch-Brite flaps are actually a little thicker, and they're packed into that brush assembly with more density, so they tend to be a bit more aggressive. Now, as with all flap style brushes, you basically have Scotch-Brite with sandpaper, and the sandpaper only has grit on the one side. So for that reason, these need to turn in one direction. The brushes are always marked on the bottom with an arrow showing the direction of rotation, so you know which way they need to go. Now, if you need a little more rounding, what you might find is that going from the red standard brush to the gold brush, you might find that it gives you the added rounding that you're looking for. Now, as is the case with anything, the brush that's more aggressive tends to wear a little faster. So you're probably looking at getting a little less run time out of the gold brush, but you will get a little bit more rounding. So there are some time savings to be had, and there's also some less wear and tear on the machine as well. So if you need to get a little more rounding, again, as you do the calibration of the machine, it may not be a case where you need to apply more and more pressure to get this brush to do the job. It might be that you, in your application, need to go to a little bit coarser abrasive. The cost is exactly the same, so there's no difference there. You may see a little bit of reduced life, but you will see more edge rounding from this brush. So again, when you're doing your calibration, going deeper into the part sometimes isn't the answer. Most times that's not the case. There's a fine line between too much pressure and not enough.